Hello and welcome to today's program. Upsize Reading Experiences, Expand Accessibility with Large Print. I'm Susan McGuire, Senior Editor, Collection Management and Library Outreach. Before we begin, I'd like to go over some technical details. Links to today's slide presentation and additional resources from Thorndike Press were included in the reminder email you received from Zoom 1 hour ago. To download them, please open that email, scroll to the bottom, and click on the links located there. You can also download the slides and title list by copying the URLs on this screen, that's the next slide, into your web browser. If you have any trouble, please contact us at webinars@booklistonline.com. The audience is in listen-only mode, but we welcome any questions you may have. On the bottom of your screen is a toolbar with a section for Q&A. If you have a question or need technical assistance, simply click Q&A and type your message into the box that appears. We will do our best to respond to all tech-related questions, and we'll pass along all other questions to today's panelists so they can follow up with you after the webinar. We will have time to answer some audience questions at the end of the program, so please submit any questions you have and we'll answer as many as we can at the end of the program. Booklist offers closed captioning on all webinars. To enable or disable captions on your screen, please look for and click the live transcript icon on the toolbar mentioned earlier. From there, you can select show or hide captions from the menu that appears. If you choose to enable subtitles, you can adjust the size of the captions at any time by selecting subtitle settings. And finally, Booklist expects all participants to maintain an atmosphere of respect and fairness. Anyone who violates this standard of behavior, including engaging in any form of harassment, may, at the discretion of the organizers, be immediately removed. And the next slide. We have a wonderful program for you today, so without any further ado, I'll kick things off to our moderator, Amber Cummings, Library Sales Consultant at Thorndike Press.
Thank you, Susan, and welcome everyone to the Upsize Reading Experiences webinar. As she mentioned, I'm Amber Cummings. I am your moderator for today, and I'm currently a library sales consultant with Thorndike Press. I cover Arkansas, Georgia, Hawaii, Indiana, Texas, and Wyoming. So you may recognize me from there. I'm so excited to be hosting this conversation today about expanding accessibility with large print, and our panel is absolutely amazing. Today with us, we have Robin Bradford, Collection Development Librarian from Pierce County Library System in Washington State, and author of the Reader's Advisory Guide to Romance. We also have Matthew Galloway, a Collection Development Librarian for Anythink Libraries in Colorado. Tyler Hahn, Director of the Cherokee Public Library in Cherokee, Iowa, and active member of the Association for Rural and Small Libraries, or ARLS. And we also have Dr. Sharon Sherman, the Bilingual Patron Experience Associate for Jefferson County Public Library, Belmar in Colorado. Thank you all so much for being here with us today. We do have some audience polls for our live viewers that I'm really excited to go over. But before we get into those questions, I'd like to do level set here. Can you share a little bit more with me about the library system and communities that you serve, starting with Robin?
Good morning or afternoon, depending on where you are. I am Robin Bradford, and I work for Pierce County Library, which is in Tacoma, Washington. Tacoma, the city, has its own library system, and we serve unincorporated Pierce County and also the small towns that are within Pierce County. It is 1,800 square miles, and we serve a population of 655,000 with 19 branches. And I'm happy to say that our large print circulation is above our pre-pandemic level. So we are back in large print.
Awesome, that's great to hear. Okay, how about you, Matthew?
Hello, everyone. Matthew Galloway. I work at Anythink Libraries, which takes care of Adams County, Colorado. It basically lies right along the top of the Denver Metro. We serve about 450,000 people and currently have 7 branches and a bookmobile, but we're opening another branch hopefully next year.
Very exciting. All right, Tyler.
Yeah, so hello all. My name is Tyler Hahn. I'm the director of the Cherokee Public Library in northwestern Iowa, and that's important because there's like 13 other Cherokee libraries around in the US and Bahamas. Didn't know that until I had started here. But we have a service population of about 5,200. We are the largest library within our county. So we see people from all over the county as well, and we have a county population of about 11,000.
Great. And last but of course not least, Sharon.
Hi, everyone. My name's Sharon Sherman. I've been working for Jefferson County Public Library for about 2.5 years now as a bilingual patron experience associate. What's really fun about that is that I do get to spend a lot of time with individuals who may just need English, Spanish translation services. And I also get to do story times in Spanish on occasion, which is a total blast with little ones. I'm really excited to be part of this panel, especially to talk a little bit about books that are being translated from Spanish-speaking authors to English in large print.
Amazing. The bilingual content is so exciting for me. It's just another step toward accessibility and making the titles available for everyone who might come through the doors. All right, so let's jump right into our questions for the day. First, what does accessibility look like in your library and who benefits from accessibility? If we could start with Matthew.
Yeah, I mean, here it's just really we're trying to offer as many options as possible. So, of course, for this webinar, that means offering as wide a collection of large print as possible, but also having robust audiobook and e-material collections. We've even recently found a source for adult large print in Spanish, Letra Grande. And those will be going out this week, so hopefully those will go over well. In terms of other kinds of accessibility, we circulate things like wheelchairs and walkers, reading magnifiers. We are experimenting with e-readers. And then we just encourage people to use our state's talking book library if there's something that we can't get them.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. And it's wonderful to hear all the different ways that the libraries can support accessibility for sure. Let's see, Tyler, do you have anything to share as well for that?
Yeah, so accessibility for us, we're a small community, and a lot of our population density has moved quite out and about with things. So we've really focused on bringing our services to individuals within our community by circulating hotspots and devices in order to help those that are like, I might need to utilize like internet, but I don't necessarily have the ability to within my own home, to keeping our internet on and open and available 24/7. A large portion of our efforts have been also developing robust large print collections as well. We heard from several community conversations that our patrons in our community love our library, but their eyes might not necessarily be in the best health, or after a long day of working in front of screens and computers and bright lights, those eyes are just starting to get a little bit fatigued, and it's you're having a little bit of trouble figuring out that sweet spot for where you should read. So large print materials really have been such a boon for getting more people in our door and more people enthusiastic about reading as well.
That's awesome and so exciting to hear. If you provide it, the people will come. So I did just have a quick question. Matthew, I know that your library has a pretty big accessibility initiative right now. Could you talk a little bit about that?
I mean, essentially, we just had a big DEI evaluation, and so we've realized that we can reach out in a lot of other ways. and help both community and staff members. So that's why we've started buying things like the wheelchairs and everything else. And hopefully we're going to have, they're working on a big like marketing push to put all these things together and just sort of highlight to the community, not only do we offer all these accessibility devices and media, but just how important it is overall to everyone that we do.
Definitely. So expanding accessibility beyond just the materials in the library. That's a really great focus. And I love that your library has been able to work on that. And okay, it looks like it's time for our first audience poll. So that should be popping up for you folks here. But the question is, what demographics of readers do you see checking out large print books in your library? I'll give you a moment here to lock in your votes. And while those come through, let's see, Robin, what would you say is one of the more majority users of the large print in your library?
We are probably still with the senior citizens and individuals with low vision, which is traditionally what we think of when we think of large print. But I would also maybe caution that we don't let it stop there and we start to think outside of who else might like large print. And I was thinking about this in terms of closed caption on TV, where once upon a time we thought people with hearing impairments were the ones who used closed caption, but now everybody uses closed caption. I might use it if I'm eating chips and I can't hear over my own chewing, or if I'm watching something where the accents are really strong, or if I want to see names and place names. There's any number of reasons why you might choose to use it. And I think that's the same with large print.
Absolutely. Yes, that's a really great perspective. Let's see. And all right, so we have our poll results up here. It looks like it sort of matches what you had said, Robin. So a lot of senior citizens, individuals who may have low vision, but I do see an uptick in the just general adult audience. And then it looks like middle and young adult are pretty well matched. Let's see, Sharon, I know you said that you do sometimes work, with the younger readers in the library, and being a bilingual patron services associate. How do you feel about this? Does this kind of match with what you see in your library?
Yeah, I think for a lot of kids, especially middle and young adult readers, it's still somewhat of a stigma to consider, finding something in large print or something that just looks different from anybody else in school. And I know, having worked as a special educator in schools before, public schools, that's really an issue for a lot of kids. But then I think breaking that down over time, I think, to be honest, I feel it's the pandemic that's kind of made a shift with tweens, so that being that they're a little bit more tech savvy than maybe their slightly older peers, that's, I think, caused a lot to help them kind of adjust to the fact that the world does look a little different now, and it's okay to get help where you need it. So we have visually impaired youngsters that come into our building sometimes with their parents. We have them come in as teens on their own. We have hearing impaired individuals who have group meetings with us now, and they're listening to their audiobooks if they're visually impaired, or they're, looking at large print if that's what they need. I think the other times where we've had individuals who just feel like, maybe because of homeschooling situations or things that they've had to deal with up until now, they're starting to socialize more, and the library is a really great place for them to do that. So to make all of these things available to them, and not just to the adult learners, is a huge thing. The great thing too is that we do have assistive technology where we're using programs like Dragon Speak for adults, but now I think that's even going to translate to working for younger kids too, who have long papers to work on, and they'd rather just be able to speak to the computer, do the editing later. So I think these are the kinds of things that are fantastic that are available now across the board for anybody who needs them. So I'm really excited to see how some of these changes are happening at the libraries.
Awesome. That's so great to hear. And I know, Tyler, your library just recently sort of refreshed and created a large collection for the youth readers. Could you tell us a little bit about how that came to be? And
Certainly. Thank you, Amber. We received a Libraries Transforming Communities grant from the American Library Association. And as you can see, we were able to add in 413 large print books at about $7,915. We had an immense uptick within large print circulation, so much so a lot of our community members are like, this is phenomenal. This is great. We had teens start actually going in, looking at like Colleen Hoover and things like that, saying, hey, I really like these large print materials. Why don't we have these for kids? So we applied for another Libraries Transforming Communities grant for $10,000. And you know what? We begun collection development for our youth and our youngest readers within our community, because we're seeing more engagement, we're seeing better focus and concentration, and we're seeing more and more kids and parents agreeing that maybe I have just a little bit too much screen time. I want to step away from the e-reader or the device to read because it's a bit distracting, and I want to read books, but I like those large print. So we've also worked with our youth large print as well to have them as hyped up as our graphic novels and manga. They are shelved in that very same section right next door, so a kid can see the, you know, their favorite dog man. But you know what? They can also go there and get a good old-fashioned novel as well.
awesome. And it's so great. I love to see it every day, the kids discovering that large print is even an option for them. And then they see their absolute favorite, what their friends are reading right now that they maybe struggled with before. So it's so amazing to see a collection like that start at your library. And I'm so excited to see how it works for you folks.
And just real quick too, the covers look exactly the same as the regular books as well. So there's no stigma at all for those youth large print materials that I absolutely love.
Absolutely. Yes. All of the large print that we produce at Thorndike, we've made it a point in the youth materials to always license the original cover art. That way, from the outside, nobody would know the difference. So they're just reading the same book as their friends are, and they don't have to worry about any kind of stigma. All right. And so I know over the past few years, libraries have seen a ton of changes, especially from, being closed down and reopening. So I'd love to hear about any various reader demographics you're getting in the library and any changes you've seen to those demographics over the last couple of years. Robin, is that something you could share?
Sure. So I don't know about changes. I think the same people are coming in that came in pre-pandemic, but I think those people have really opened their minds as to what they're going to take out. And I'm not sure what changed their minds. Maybe it was just when the libraries were closed, and ours were closed for quite some time, and then we went to curbside service. Maybe that was a time of experimentation, and they decided they would try different things, whether that's different authors or different formats. But like I said, before the pandemic, we served 41,000, almost 42,000 in 2019 of large print, and last year it was 52,000. So that's quite a big uptick. And of course, like in 2020, it was under 20,000, which reflects people couldn't browse. They could only ask for what they knew about. So, and we were closed for much of the year before we even started curbside. And then we saw a steady increase. 2021 was a little bit more. 2022 was fully pre-pandemic level and then exploded. So I think people are just more willing to take different things, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely. We always love to see the open-mindedness when you come into the library. You never know what you'll find. Let's see, Tyler, have you seen any demographic shifts or changes?
Yeah, we've been seeing a lot more younger people coming to visit the library, and we would often think, oh, they're coming in after school to utilize the computers and play some games, but we have a lot more utilizing our resources and our services. And one of the programs we had also started shortly after the pandemic was homebound delivery for those who couldn't necessarily make it to the library. We're seeing a lot more families actually do family trips now to the library with some of their older parents and older adults, and just sort of carpool on down, load up materials for a couple of weeks, and then head on back. But it's really great to see how our library and libraries in general have become really great community anchors and hubs for everybody to gather and learn new things and enjoy some great books.
Absolutely. That's awesome. And Matthew, what about you?
I think they've covered most of it. We are starting to see some younger people in general just coming in. Libraries seem to be trending on TikTok at the moment, so that's nice. Um, Anecdotally, we had a couple of customers talk about how much they like large print after staring at computer screens all day. So it's not that they necessarily have greater vision problems, but it's just more comfortable to read. So we've been thinking about that when we're recommending things out.
Awesome. And I think Sharon, I saw that you had something to add there. Would you mind?
A couple of things. I think during the pandemic, a lot more people were just basically chomping at the bit to be able to meet with folks again. So when we started having our bilingual and our Spanish conversation groups in our buildings, again, that was a huge draw, which then brought people to, let's say if they were a grandparent and retired and wanted to, find out more about books that they might read in a different language, we could take them off to the Spanish section. And some of those are in large print. And then the fun thing is that they found out that English authors are having their books translated into other languages. So they may have already read a Stephen King that now they can read in Spanish just for fun. The other side of it too is that, let's say there is a grandparent who is now taking care of grandkids because they did that during the pandemic. They're continuing to do that. There's also a Spanish section, and there are also French language books, Arabic language books, all kinds of others in the kids section that they may not have known about before. On top of that, there's also read alouds, which when parents in general find out about those, they're like, oh my gosh, I have to have that for my 3 and 4-year-old. I have to have that for my 7 and 8-year-old as well. Because those kinds of things are just available across the board. And yet nobody ever knew about them pre-pandemic. So now it's just like, let's chat about what your kid wants to read, how we can find the right medium for them, and still get them off screen, still have something that they're interacting with an individual with, you, a teacher, a friend, a grandparent. And I think those are the biggest pluses for the way that things have gone over time, especially in the last 7 years or so. I'm so excited about all of that because it brings different generations together. It's not just about one person reading a book all by themselves. It's interactive and it's exploding in that way.
Absolutely. And that's so amazing to see. And just another aspect of large print, how it can be shared among the whole family, regardless of reading level, regardless of age. Everybody can gather around, they can share, they can pass the book around. So it's really great to see the format being put to use and folks discovering just how much it enables them and empowers them as readers. We do have a couple slides just to kind of touch base on the large print that we produce through Thorndike. So I'll have those popped up here and we can talk a little bit about the actual format and what we offer. Okay. So here you can see some of our adult large print materials. Right now, we're currently publishing over 80 titles a month. We try to keep the catalog fresh as possible for your libraries with as many both household or best-selling author names, as well as those debut novels and up-and-coming authors. Almost a third of the collection that we offer in the adult side also features the original cover art as well. That's something that we have really focused on over the last year or so, getting feedback as far as the cover art and when we choose to have the original and when we don't. We're also looking at about 200 simultaneous publications per year. So that's publishing the large print alongside the regular print. So we're not seeing those delays that sometimes come with additional formatting. Also, we have a full brochure available on our website that gives you details of standing order plan options that can help you sort of more automated with your collection development. We have a whole team of acquisitions editors that select the titles, research authors, and make sure that these collections are going to help circulate in your library. Also, we have the large print in Spanish now for our young readers. As you can see here, it has that same great format with the 16-point font, the line spacing, the high contrast on the page, and of course, the same original cover art. Right now, the collection is 17 titles in total, with 11 being for that sort of middle grade younger demographic, and then 6 on the young adult side. And those will be publishing additionally this fall. We'll have another collection and continue sort of biannually that way. All right. So now that we've talked a little bit about the format and what the books actually look like, I know one of our biggest points with our large print is that it supports equity and content. Two of you folks here also work with our editorial team on title acquisitions for our Diverse Voices standing order plan. Sharon, I'd love to hear from you a little bit more about how that's been on the panel.
Oh, wow. For me, this has been an incredible experience because I've never had an opportunity to weigh in on authors that I've loved for a long time. And the best part, I'll just add a little personal note. My mom has started reading more large print as a result. She is 86 years old. She is bilingual. And now she's like, wait a minute, I can read hijuelos in Spanish. Are you kidding? I haven't been able to see that since I lived in Peru. And she's been in the United States most of her life. So it's awesome that that's available to people who do speak a particular language. But now I think it's even better that adults across ages, across, abilities, challenges that they might have, are pulling on, these books and going to those shelves first, as opposed to trying to find an author in the fiction section. And I think what's also nice is that down the road, I think we'll see even more happening with nonfiction. So for example, I was just thinking of Roxanne Gay, actually, since this is Pride Month. She has written nonfiction and fiction. And I have found some of her books in large print. And I'm like, yes, Roxanne, good for you, girl. But here's another side to it, which kind of ties into the other aspects of diversity that we can pay attention to. It's also Caribbean American Heritage Month this month. So overlap Roxanne with Pride and Caribbean Heritage, heck yeah. Fantastic. It's amazing that these are things that we never even dreamed were possible. And my mom, who's 86 years old, can just pull anything off the shelf now if she wants to, or she can find the audiobook, or she can find it online. And I think the ebooks are also just becoming a bigger and bigger thing for people who do have a tablet at home. But then on top of that, it's even more exciting when then an individual like my mom will meet someone at the library the next time she picks up a hold and say, hey, I read that book. Let me chat with you about it at the front desk or off to the side. And I think those are the connections that are priceless, that last forever.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's an amazing point too. Just being able to share the experience of having read the book because it's now available in a format that they can access. That's a really amazing story. I love that you shared that. And Matthew, you're also on the panel. Could you share a little bit about your experiences?
Yeah, I guess also to add a personal note, my mother is Korean, and so I never really got to, connect as much with that through literature when I was younger. And so I think it is so gratifying that now I get to help choose books by Asian and Asian diasporic writers to put into large print and get them out there, not just for people who may share heritage with the authors, but also just to kind of expand everyone's minds a little bit. I've loved seeing like every one of those books come in and get checkouts. Sure, they're not at like James Patterson levels, but they're checking out. People are interested. Um, with the whole collection, I mean, Thorndike is doing such a good job of trying to meet a variety of cultural backgrounds with this particular Diverse Voices collection standing order plan. And it's just fun to like get to review all these books and look through and try to like find a nice balance of like these books will probably check out because they match the common demographics, like book club reads and historical fiction and whatnot, but with a different point of view and a different level of authenticity. But also being able to put out some like interesting choices that people might not expect. Like both me and the rest of the committee were super excited to choose Bora Chung's Cursed Bunny short story collection that was up for the Booker Prize. And it's just a really interesting array of speculative fiction that goes from like grotesque to touching, and I don't know, it's just beautiful. And I love that that book is even more accessible now.
Absolutely. And that was the absolute goal with that Diverse Voices plan that we offer, is to make sure that these authors are getting highlighted and not overlooked, and that their stories are getting pushed out there, and that folks like, anyone can pick them up and find them and read them. So, all right. Now that we've talked a little bit about readers and stories, I'd love to shift into collection development and hear a little bit about what new considerations go into your large print selection. Robin, if you wouldn't mind starting us off.
Sure. So new considerations. Well, when I started doing collection development, you guys were not producing 80 plus titles a month. So that's, first of all, like that's amazing. Like there's way more choice now in adding to the collection. And that is key. Like if you don't have it, you can't circulate it. So the other thing is, as I mentioned earlier, kind of stepping away from our preconceived notions of what will circulate and what won't circulate, and who is using large print and who isn't, and for what reason. I think once we kind of move back from that, which is scary because we, of course, want to make sure we're using our dollars wisely, and we don't want to buy something that isn't going to circulate. But at the same time, we need to leave space for people to discover. Like the library is about discoverability. And so if we don't stretch a little bit what our thoughts are on what will circulate, then it won't circulate because we won't have it. So getting out there and saying, well, I'm going to try this and see what happens. And then not just buying it is the first part, but also promoting it. So if you're doing a mystery display, put some large print on that display. If you're doing a biographies display, put some large print on that display. It's okay to mix your formats so that people can discover just by, serendipity, which is one of the best ways. Also, new books. I've worked in some libraries where they did not put large print on their new bookshelf. It was just one of those things that, yeah, we buy that and we're gonna put it in the large print section, and people who want it will find it. And it's like, well, why aren't we giving it the same visibility? So putting it on your new bookshelf so that when people come in to see what's new, they also have an option there as well. So it's not just purchasing it, although you have to purchase it before you can do any of those other things. But once you have it, making sure that people know that you have it, you're not hiding it away, you're celebrating it the way you celebrate the rest of your collection. And then that gets more circulations, which is what we want.
Definitely. It can be scary though, I'm sure, stepping out of the norm and what you know works and taking that sort of risk.
And it doesn't mean you don't buy those things. If you know that your Western readers love large print and no matter how much you buy, it's not enough, keep buying the Westerns. But maybe you buy one fewer and buy a title from the diverse voices, or one fewer and buy a thriller or traditional mystery or a romance that you thought, oh, nobody wants that. They get plenty of that in regular print. They also want it in large print.
Definitely. Matthew, have you had any similar experiences with sort of stepping out of that comfort zone to expand the collection, or?
Yeah, Robin was very thorough, and I agree on every single one of those points. Like she said, you have to have the book if someone's going to be able to find it. And it's so easy to like look at stats and just feel like I should stick to this safe, comfortable place with high circulation. But I don't know, it just feels better when those, further out titles like find an audience, and you hope that you've reached someone new that maybe didn't use the collection before. I also think some of our branches are really experimenting more with just making sure that the large print collection is more front and center completely, because, I've worked in several libraries, and it seems like sometimes libraries like to kind of shove large print in the back. They shove their Spanish collection in the back, and those things need to be super visible because they're not as well known as we may think that they are to the general public. So for instance, one of our branches put the large print section right next to the hold shelf, so everyone gets to see it now. And like the large print circulation at that branch has like skyrocketed in every genre.
That's so awesome. And let's see, Sharon, I would love to hear from you as well. I know that you have a great perspective to share.
Yeah, well, you just got me thinking about this, Robin, when you were talking about Westerns, because living in Colorado, everything is Western around here. So what's fantastic though is that as things have happened, especially most recently, really with different new monuments being placed here, finally recognized federally, there's a lot more stories now that are coming out of Colorado specifically. If you want to think about Campamachi, which Japanese American internment, that's a Western story. If you want to think about the sand dunes, our state park, now federal park, finally becoming something that was, enjoyed by indigenous people in this part of the world forever, and now is going to be protected. That's a Western story. We're very fortunate in Denver to also have a Black History museum, which talks about people who came here and lived here long before Colorado was even a state. There were African-American cowboys. People don't necessarily know that, but people who do, I think, should really take the time and say, you know what? This is something that we need. This is something that is diverse. It represents my state. It's still an important story. And if you've never heard it, let me tell you all about it today, because I'm putting it on the display. Chat with me about it if you don't know what I'm talking about. I think those are huge things that, yes, it does take, looking outside the box a little bit, but it's also really, really important for those of us who are in on what these stories are about to stick around and make sure that other people who maybe are just coming, in my case, to Colorado for the first time, to find out about them. And then point them to those museums and those national monuments and say, this is a place you can visit. It's only 3 hours away at most. But you can also camp while you're there. There's all kinds of things that I think every state has an opportunity to be able to share about their own hometowns. I don't necessarily claim Colorado as home in the sense that I wasn't born here, but I claim it as home because it's my adult home. It's where I grew up. It's where there's so many things that I do now that I never would have done if I had never come here. And one of them is working at the library. So.
Thank you so much for sharing. And Tyler, we'd love to hear from you as well.
Yeah, I'll just chime in really quick, echoing a lot of what Robin and Matthew and Sharon had said. One of the other things that we really do to help highlight what we have in our collection is every month we create a new book bookmark that's done in nice large font, and we include that in every single large print book that we check out, and then we can create different lists as well for different months. And then we also really like to highlight books that have been graffitied a lot, particularly with our adult large print. Everybody that has read it has put their initials in there, and it's really great to highlight those true worn and well read titles as well.
Awesome. I love that idea. So creative. Looks like it's time for our next audience poll, which sort of ties right into what you folks were just talking about. How do you manage or shelve the library or the large print in your library? I'd love to hear from you, Robin, while we wait for the audience responses.
So we currently float our large print. Different collections in our overall collection float, and large print is one of them. The reason being that people weren't getting refreshed items in their collection, like the large print item or a collection they had would be stagnant, and the people who were using large print were like, well, they weren't searching the catalog, and we think of searching the catalog as a cure-all. There are still lots of browsers, and people want to see what's new, and they're not going to search the catalog all the time. So they weren't seeing the full breadth of what we were ordering. And so we started floating it. And one thing that we have found is currently, right now, no one has hit their limit. So there's shelf space limits. Everybody is under their limit with large print. So it is moving around. No one is getting it all, which is one of the kind of things people worry about with floating. Like, I'm going to lose all my collection. It's going to go to the big branch over here, and the small branches are never going to have anything for people. And that's not happening. Like, everyone is kind of at an appropriate level for their shelf space and could all use a little bit more, which is great, because that means then I'm going to buy a little bit more to fit those shelves. So what we're seeing really is that it's just getting used across the board, no matter your branch size, no matter who you think uses your collection, it's getting used, which is what we love to see.
Absolutely. So it looks like we have our results here, and the vast majority have their large print put out in a large print section. And then there are some more different collections, it looks like, and very few that seem to interfile or float across branches. Tyler, would you mind sharing a little bit about how you folks manage your collection?
Definitely. So we're a smaller library. We have about 30 to 35,000 materials total within our library. So our adult large print is actually so we're a Carnegie library that had an addition built on. So it's in the old Carnegie part of the library. It's a well-traveled part of the library. It's where all the nostalgia is, and it's where all the really good Instagram photo spots are as well, if you ever want to visit. But for our youth, we were like, we want that to be high visibility. So we decided to shelve that in its own little selection or section right there by the graphic novels and manga. And we were really cognizant about that because we didn't want those large print materials to get lost. We had an inkling that maybe some of our more reluctant readers, or our readers who struggle a bit more, who tend to gravitate towards just solely reading graphic novels, might have better visibility right there, and it would make for easier shoppability, and it certainly has.
Awesome. That is so great to hear. And I love that, you know, you're keeping the large print together, but you're finding those sort of high traffic, high visual, you know, visibility areas. So they can't really ignore it. It's great. And let's see. So I know we are going to move into a Q&A, but I figured I'd check and see. Matthew, do you have anything to add as far as managing the collection or the location?
Ours might be a little less common, I guess, because our entire collection is floating. So the idea is that things are going to land where people place holds and check them out and return them. So supposedly everything is in the right spot, but we actually have to do a lot of hands-on with the large print because of that, because of course they do all end up at the biggest branches, and we have to make sure to like manually pull them out and send them to smaller branches to, you know, make sure they're more visible.
Definitely. And Sharon, did you have anything to add?
I just have to mention swooshes. That's what we call them in our branch. These are basically standalone book shelving units that look like a swoosh. And so it looks kind of like Nike, but not, because we can't brand ourselves that way, but it is really cool. We started using them with the teenagers, and then we started using them for large print as well, because you can move them anywhere and they're not very heavy, and you can put at least 12 books on there at a time. So it's a lot of fun. Right now we have one sitting between our Spanish section and our large print section. We are also a polling place right now, so we tried to put things closer to the polling area, but not so close that we're interfering with what's going on over there. And yet it's a good time, because it's like, as people are walking out, they have their little I voted tag, they can just swing by a swoosh, and we love encouraging that. So yes, swooshes are great.
I love that so much, and that's a new terminology for me. So I'm gonna have to start using that, asking libraries if they have the swoosh and how they're using it. Awesome. All right, so we are going to have some time here at the end for an audience Q&A, but I just wanted to give a very heartfelt thank you to all of our panelists and everyone who took time out of their day to join us today. Please, anyone in the audience, check the download section for more information on our budget and time-saving standing order plan options. We also have some catalogs in there and some brand new posters that you can print and put out in your library. We've recently updated those, so those are going to be absolutely beautiful. Your Thorndike Press rep, whether it's me or one of my amazing colleagues, will always be happy to support your large print accessibility needs. You can reach out directly to us for any insight, custom reporting, or curation help, and any other offers. Keep your eyes open in your email, because we will have a 50% off sale coming up soon. So that'll be a great opportunity to get your collection refreshed. And you can also find our large print, of course, with many wholesalers. And you can check our social links as well for additional promotions and things like that. All right. So now that we're ready to start the Q&A, let's start off with a couple questions we got here. So one viewer, Patricia, said, my issue with large print is the run seems to be short. When one of our large prints gets damaged, they're hard to replace because they go out of print so quickly. I can definitely touch base on that. We work really hard on determining the appropriate quantity of the books to be printed, and we take into account the major market demand, projections for how that book is going to sell or circulate, and we do make every effort to try to keep them in stock, but there are certain instances where they just have to go out of stock a little sooner than expected. So we're actively monitoring the books, how they're selling, what the demand looks like, and we try to respond effectively and make sure that we're sort of treating each title independently and making sure that we're fulfilling the demand for it. So we're definitely here to offer you the best that we can support-wise for those, and any input that you have or recommendations for things like that is always something that we welcome at Thorndike. Let's see. All right, and a good question for our panelists here. Any tips for increasing large print budget? My large print budget is currently half my fiction budget, and it needs to cover fiction, tween, biography, and nonfiction. So I know, Tyler, you had just gotten that grant. Would you mind sharing a little bit about how you folks work on getting those large print dollars?
Most definitely. So if you are a small or rural library, if you're even like a school or academic or public, those libraries transforming communities grants are absolutely amazing. $10,000 to $20,000 for collection development. We spent nearly $8,000 and had so many books thanks to that. With grant money not being a permanent thing, we've had to assess our collection development moving forward as well. And like our entire operating budget is under 250,000. It's just about right there in the 240s, with our collection budget being under 15,000 a year. And as we've looked at some of these statistics and data about circulation in large print, we've had to assess what else or what aren't we purchasing. So we've moved some of our monies, which we had traditionally spent on DVDs and audiobooks, since we've seen more of those patrons moving towards streaming, into those large print materials. That might not necessarily work for your library, but it has worked for ours and a couple of other libraries who have done similar collection development plans within the LTC grant like that.
Awesome, thank you. I did have a clarifying question. Matthew, I think you probably helped with this one. What exactly does floating mean with the collection?
I'm sorry. So we don't have collections that are tied to a particular branch. We send all of our books out, and then they just stay in whatever branch they're returned at. So that's what it means for us anyway.
Gotcha. Thank you. And circling back to the budget real quick, Sharon, I think you had a point about this as well. Sorry that I didn't get it before.
Oh, not a problem. Here's one thing that just popped into my head. I actually wrote a grant to the International Reading Association for kids when I was in school to get Dragon Speak in our school building. This became a little pilot project that we did. It was fantastic because it was software that we were using in the building already, kind of experimentally with some of our students who had reading difficulties, say dyslexia, for example. But then what I applied it to was also being able to help kids with their writing, whether or not they had a diagnosed learning disability or not. And so the IRA was fantastic. They helped, provide the funding to be able to purchase that for our building. This was when Dragon Speak had, oh gosh, it was in its first or second iteration. So a long, long time ago. But where it's come since then is fantastic because it's available to adults. It's available to young people. The way that I ended up writing that grant proposal, and again, it was for a school setting, but this is something to keep in mind, is that it really is an intergenerational device. And therefore, when I was looking at what you were saying in terms of, I've got fiction, I've got nonfiction, I've got teens, I've got, adults that I got to fund. And my fiction adult section is my biggest budget. That's an important detail that I think people need to understand, who are the financiers of what we do, is that everything overlaps, especially now. Because as I mentioned earlier, grandparents are helping their grandchildren how to read. Individuals who, used to be the traditional teacher in a school setting are no longer just doing that. They're also teaching outside of the school setting. They're tutoring kids. They're doing things that, they come to libraries to be able to do. Retired individuals are now also making that available, not just to their families, but to people in the community, because they know there's a need. And so I think that's something that we got to consider, is that fiction isn't just fiction for a certain population. Fiction is for everybody. Nonfiction is for everybody. Just like large print and all these other ADA, supports that we are providing now is for everybody.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. So we do have one final question. My library is debating moving our large print collection to the shelves next to the regular print. Right now, it is in a corner next to magazines and near the DVDs because that's just where it's always been. What would your opinions be on the move? Robin, I'd love to hear from you.
So I would be curious to know the travel patterns, because in many libraries, DVDs are heavily used, so that if they're next to the DVDs, they're going to get a lot of eyes that they may not get other places. But also, I like the idea of having them next to the books so that it's a straight flow. So when you're browsing, you're not having to go to a different corner of the library to get and see large print materials. So it really depends on whether that's going to increase or decrease the people who can see it.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's great and highlights how, every library is going to be a little bit different, but sometimes you just have to try things out and see how it works for sure. So we're getting towards the end of the day here. Before I turn it back over to Booklist, I did just want to say a huge thank you to the Association of Rural and Small Libraries, or ARSL, for connecting us with librarians, and Emily Bronnell of the director of Plum Lake Public Library in Sainer, Wisconsin, for the poster ideas. Please, folks, all stay tuned for more public library accessibility stories, as well as our upcoming 50% off sale that we're going to have here in the next couple weeks. Susan, I will go ahead and hand things back over to you.
Thank you so much, Amber, Robin, Matthew, Tyler, and Sharon. That was an amazing, informative conversation. Tomorrow, all attendees will receive an email containing links to today's video recording, slide presentation, additional resources from Thorndike Press, and a certificate of completion. For more about Booklist webinars, be sure to visit booklistonline.com/webinars, where you can view archives of past webinars and register for upcoming ones. And we'll see a slide of that in just a second. So there you go, Booklist webinars. If you're heading to sunny San Diego for ALA Annual, be sure to stop by the Booklist booth number 635 for tons of bookish happening. We'll have copies of Booklist and Booklist Reader, our new guide to graphic novels issue, book giveaways, author signings, a reader recommendation wheel, and more. Plus, be sure to get your tickets for the Michael L. Prince Awards and the Andrew Carnegie Awards ceremony and reception to hear from some amazing authors and celebrate reading. Find more details on the Booklist website. Staff training, in-services, local conference, Booklist can help. You can now request free copies of Booklist and Booklist Reader for upcoming staff training programs so you can help the next generation of library workers become readers, advisory, and collection development superstars. Scan the QR code on the screen, visit our website, or email info@booklistonline.com for more details. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. One more huge thank you to our guests and to our sponsor, Thorndike Press. This concludes today's webinar. See you next time.